You say yes when every part of you wants to say no. You do favors for people who wouldn't lift a finger if you were drowning. You bite your tongue and swallow your words just to keep the peace in moments where you should be drawing a line in the sand. You think this makes you kind. You think it makes you noble. It doesn't. It makes you a target. It makes you a puppet on a string, and the people around you are quietly pulling those strings. Manipulation isn't some rare cinematic event carried out by obvious villains. It happens in your living room, your workplace, and inside your own circle of friends every single day. It's the friend who weaponizes guilt to force you into plans you hate, the manager who feeds your ego with empty praise just to dump their workload onto you, the partner who suddenly breaks into tears the moment they're caught in a lie. You think you're making choices. In reality, you're being moved like a pawn on a chessboard. Most people are easy to control because they are predictable. Their minds have psychological handles that anyone can grab. But there is a rare class of person who has removed those handles completely. They move through the world quietly, seeing every emotional trap and stepping over all of them. Centuries ago, Niccolò Machiavelli described these exact dynamics. He didn't write about how people should behave in a perfect world. He exposed how power actually works, and he revealed a brutal truth. Manipulation only works when you need something from the manipulator. The moment you stop craving their approval, their control disappears. Today, we are going to build the psychological armor that makes manipulation impossible. We're breaking down 6 behaviors that make a person structurally untouchable in a world full of social predators. Before we dive into the first pillar of psychological sovereignty, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. By doing so, you're telling the algorithm that you value deep psychological insights over mindless distraction. Join the inner circle now. Number 1. They starve the need for validation. Right now, you are a psychological slave because you are addicted to the sound of your own praise. The only reason a manipulator can move you is that you have a hollow space in your chest that you are trying to fill with the opinions of others. You want to be seen as the smartest, the strongest, or the most reliable guy in the room. You think this is a virtue. It's a leash. Every time you wait for a nod of approval before making a move, you are handing a stranger the remote control to your life. The man who is impossible to manipulate has performed a surgical removal of his need for your opinion. He doesn't look for a mirror in your eyes to know who he is. He has already decided. Think about how you enter a room. You are constantly scanning for signals. You're checking to see if your jokes landed, if your clothes are right, or if your boss looks pleased. This constant surveillance of other people's emotions is exactly what makes you easy to steer. A predator doesn't need force to control you. They just need to withhold their approval. They see your hunger and they use it as bait. They give you a little flattery to pull you in, then threaten to take it away the moment you stop complying. You are being trained like a lab rat because you are terrified of being the villain in someone else's story. Machiavelli understood that the masses are led by their vanity. A man who craves a compliment is a junkie, and the world is his dealer. When you are addicted to validation, you lose the ability to see reality. You stop asking, "Is this a good decision?" and start asking, "Will they like me for this?" This is how men end up in debt, in failing marriages, and in dead-end careers. The sovereign man knows your approval is a cheap, devalued currency. He doesn't want it. He doesn't need it. He is perfectly comfortable being the most hated man in the room, as long as he is the most effective. Remember the last time a friend gave you a backhanded compliment to get a favor? "I knew I could count on you. You're the only one who actually cares." You felt a surge of pride. You felt chosen. Then you spent 4 hours doing their work while they went home early. You weren't being the better man. You were the mark. They found your hook, your need to be seen as the hard worker, and they pulled it. The untouchable man hears that same line and feels nothing. He sees the play for what it is, a low-level attempt to trade a worthless compliment for his valuable time. He says no without an explanation, because he doesn't need you to understand his reasons to feel justified in his choice. 2. They master the strategic pause. Your immediate reaction is a confession of weakness. Every time you snap back with an answer, every time you rush to fill an awkward silence, and every time you defend yourself the second an accusation is thrown, you are telling the world you are under their control. You are acting like a trained animal responding to a whistle. Manipulation thrives on momentum. It requires you to stay in a state of high-speed emotional vibration, so your logical brain never has a chance to come online. The man who is impossible to manipulate has realized that the most powerful move in any interaction is the one he doesn't make. He uses the pause as a surgical tool to cut through the manipulator's rhythm. Silence is a vacuum that the human ego cannot tolerate. When you stop talking, the other person's anxiety begins to spike. They start to wonder what you're thinking. They start to feel the weight of their own words. Most men are terrified of this tension, so they kill it by talking. They apologize for things they didn't do, they leak secrets they should have kept, and they compromise on things they should have guarded, all just to make the silence go away. The sovereign man sits in that tension like it's his natural habitat. He watches the manipulator squirm, over-explain, and eventually trip over their own lies. The tactical pause is the moment you step out of the trap. When someone applies pressure, they want a reflexive loop. The second you implement a deliberate delay, you break the circuit. You are signaling that your mind is not for sale and your time is not a commodity. This isn't about being slow, it's about being intentional. Imagine a scenario where a superior tries to shame you publicly. They make a pointed comment about your performance and pause, waiting for you to stumble over an excuse. Most men get hot in the face and start rambling. The untouchable man simply looks at them. He waits 3, 4, 5 seconds. He lets the room get uncomfortably quiet. He makes them feel the aggression of their own comment. Then, he asks a neutral question. Why are you bringing this up right now? By questioning the intent rather than defending the content, he flips the knife. He stays calm while they look desperate. 3. They observe actions, never words. You are currently drowning in a sea of lies because you have a fatal addiction to the sounds coming out of people's mouths. You listen to reasons, intentions, and promises, and you treat them as if they are reality. They are not. Words are the cheapest tools in a manipulator's inventory. They are a smokescreen designed to keep you looking at the horizon while the thief is already in your pockets. A manipulator can manufacture any sentence you want to hear in a heartbeat. They can say, "I'm sorry," or "I've got your back," with Oscar-winning sincerity. But if you are listening to their voice, you are already losing. The man who is impossible to manipulate has performed a surgical disconnection between his ears and his judgment. He treats everything a person says as noise, and everything they do as the only truth. He doesn't care about your why. He only cares about the result. Manipulation lives in the gap between speech and behavior. If you allow someone to explain away their failures, you are giving them a license to betray you again. Most men are hope-based observers. They hear a promise and ignore the 10 times that person has already let them down. They accept future faking, the promise of what will happen, as if it's currency they can spend today. The sovereign man is a data-based observer. He understands that a person's history is the only reliable map of their future. He doesn't judge the seeds, he only judges the fruit. If the fruit is rotten, he doesn't care if the gardener has a good heart or a valid excuse. He throws the fruit away and walks out of the garden. The harsh truth is that you use other people's words to lie to yourself. You hear the apology from the person who cheated or the associate who stole, and you accept it because facing reality is too painful. But the man who cannot be manipulated has killed his need for comfort. He would rather be cold and correct than warm and delusional. When someone's actions contradict their words, he doesn't ask for an explanation. He recognizes that the contradiction is the explanation. The behavior is the confession they are trying to hide with their speech. If the behavior doesn't change, the apology was just a tactical maneuver to keep you from leaving. 4. They are comfortable being the villain. You are currently a hostage to your own reputation. You are being moved like a pawn because you are terrified of a single word, selfish, or perhaps cold, arrogant, or heartless. The manipulator has spent years studying the social contract you signed without realizing it, the contract that says you must be good to be accepted. They know that if they can make you feel like the bad guy, you will do anything to fix the vibe. You will compromise your boundaries, give up your time, and hand over your resources just to prove you aren't the monster they're pretending you are. The man who is impossible to manipulate has burned that contract. He is perfectly comfortable being the villain in your story if the price of being the hero is his own submission. He doesn't negotiate his boundaries to keep the peace, because he knows that a peace requiring his silence is just a slow-motion surrender. Niceness is a social tax that the weak pay to the manipulative. You think you are being considerate, but you are actually just being compliant. When you let someone disrespect your time because you don't want to make it a thing, you are signaling that your self-respect is for sale. A manipulator uses shame as a precision instrument. They cast you in a role the supportive friend, the dedicated worker, and the second you step out of that role to protect your own interests, they sound the alarm. They tell everyone you've changed or that you're difficult. The sovereign man hears these labels and smiles. He knows that when a manipulator calls you difficult, it actually means you are impossible to control. He accepts the label as a badge of honor. Think about the guilt trip you're navigating right now. Someone is acting hurt, pulling back affection, or making passive-aggressive comments because they expected more from you. They are waiting for you to crack. They want you to come crawling back, apologizing for a boundary you had every right to set. The untouchable man sits in the discomfort. He lets them be disappointed. He understands that their bad mood is their responsibility, not a debt he has to pay. He doesn't fix the atmosphere. He lets the manipulator drown in the silence they created. As long as you care about how the manipulator perceives you, they own you. But the second you stop caring about being the good guy, the game ends. They call you selfish, you agree. They call you cold, you remain silent. By refusing to fight the label, you strip it of its power. You realize that villain is just a word used by people who can no longer use you. You aren't here to be liked. You are here to be effective. 5. They maintain zero attachment to outcomes. You are a slave to whatever you cannot walk away from. This is a fundamental law of human interaction. Manipulation only functions because you have a hook in your soul, a desperate, clawing need for a specific result. You want the girl to like you, you want the boss to promote you, you want the deal to close, or you simply want the crowd to applaud. The moment a manipulator senses your need, they become your master. They realize they can withhold that outcome to force your compliance. They start playing with the scarcity of what you desire. They pull back, they get vague, and they drop hints that the prize might go to someone else just to see you panic. When you are attached, you start to perform. You start to compromise your values and negotiate your dignity just to keep a possibility alive. The man who is impossible to manipulate has realized that no single outcome is worth his sovereignty. He is always prepared to walk away from the table, and that is exactly why he is the only one with real power. Desperation has a scent. Social predators can smell it from a mile away. When you enter a negotiation, a date, or a professional interaction with the mindset that this must work, you have already lost. You are operating from a place of poverty. The manipulator will use your attachment to turn your own desires against you. They will move the goalposts and ask for just one more thing to see how much of your character you'll trade for the result. The sovereign man operates from absolute abundance. He has internalized the truth that there are 8 billion people on this planet and an infinite number of paths to success. He doesn't need this specific deal, this specific person, or this specific win. He may want it, but he does not require it. This lack of need makes him a nightmare for the manipulator, because you cannot threaten a man who is already at peace with losing the prize. Look at the push-pull dynamic in your current social circle. Someone is playing games with your attention, hot one day, cold the next. They are waiting for you to chase. They want to see you sweat, see you double text, and see you ask what's wrong as you try to win back their favor. They are using your attachment to their validation as a remote control for your behavior. The untouchable man doesn't chase. When someone pulls back, he lets them go. He doesn't ask for an explanation or try to fix the connection. He is so unattached to the outcome of that relationship that their absence doesn't create a vacuum. It just creates an opening for something better. By refusing to chase, he flips the power dynamic. The manipulator who expected a reaction is suddenly the one feeling insecure. In a high-stakes professional scenario, a manipulator in authority might hint that your future depends on doing something unethical or violating your boundaries. They expect you to buckle because they think you need the paycheck more than you value your soul. They are counting on your fear. The man who cannot be manipulated has already done the math. He would rather go broke than be a puppet. Because he has zero attachment to keeping a job at the cost of his dignity, he can look the manipulator in the eye and say, no. His willingness to lose the position makes him the most dangerous man in the room. You cannot leverage a man who has already accepted the worst-case scenario. The reality you are avoiding is that your attachment is a form of one-itis. You think this one person or this one job is the only thing that will make you whole. This is a lie you tell yourself to justify your own cowardice. As long as you believe there is only one path, you are a target. But the second you realize that you are the source of value, not the outcome, the world changes. You stop being a seeker and start being a chooser. This level of detachment isn't about being numb, it's about being free. You must develop the checkmate mentality. Every time you find yourself wanting something badly, immediately visualize yourself walking away from it without a second thought. Practice being okay with the no. When a manipulator tries to use your desire against you, you should already be halfway out the door. By maintaining zero attachment, you remain in control of the only thing that matters, your own actions. You stop being a reactor and start being an operator. The greatest power you have is not the power to get, but the power to leave. 6. They map their own internal hooks. You are currently the architect of your own manipulation. Every time you are moved or coerced, it isn't because the other person is a genius. It's because you are a leaking ship. You have left handles sticking out of your psyche that anyone with a basic understanding of human weakness can grab and pull. Most men spend their lives running away from their insecurities, trying to bury their fears under a mountain of fake confidence. The man who is impossible to manipulate does the exact opposite. He performs a cold, clinical autopsy on his own soul. He identifies every trigger, every unhealed wound, and every desperate need, mapping them out with the precision of a general preparing for a siege. He knows where he is weak, and because he knows it, those weaknesses can no longer be used against him. A manipulator cannot pull a handle that has been surgically removed. The harsh truth is that your virtues are often just hooks in disguise. You think your protective instinct toward others is a sign of being a good man. To a manipulator, it's a way to make you act against your interests by feigning distress. You think your loyalty to the team is a sign of character. To a manipulator, it's a way to make you carry the weight of their failures. You think your drive for success is an asset. To a manipulator, it's a way to bait you into a trap by promising a shortcut to status. You are being puppeted by your own unexamined desires. The sovereign man looks at these instincts with total detachment. He identifies the protector hook, the ego hook, and the status hook. He watches them like a hawk. When a manipulator tries to pull one, he recognizes the sensation instantly. He doesn't react to the pull. He simply observes the person trying to pull it. Think about the person in your life who always knows exactly what to say to make you feel guilty. They aren't magical. They've just found your accountability hook. They know you have a deep-seated fear of being seen as unreliable or selfish. Every time they want something, they start by subtly questioning your commitment, and every time, you rush to prove them wrong. You do the favor or sacrifice your time just to silence the voice of your own insecurity. The impossible man has realized that his guilt is an internal hallucination. He maps that guilt hook back to its source, usually a childhood need for approval, and he severs it. He accepts that he might be unreliable in their eyes, and he is perfectly fine with that. By owning his flaws, he renders them useless as weapons. If you have a need to be seen as the smartest person in the room, a manipulator will act like a student and lead you right off a cliff while you're busy lecturing. If you have a fear of being broke, they will use the threat of loss to make you compromise your integrity. You are a walking map of vulnerabilities. The sovereign man spends time in silence identifying these biological leashes. He doesn't try to fix his insecurities just to feel better. He identifies them so he can watch them. He becomes a black box to the outside world. They can see the surface, but they can never find the mechanism that moves him. You must develop the discipline of the psychological autopsy. Look back at every time you were manipulated and identify exactly which hook was pulled. Was it your pride, your fear of loneliness, your need for respect? Do not hide from the answer. The moment you name the hook, you take away its power. When you are in a high-pressure interaction and you feel that familiar urge to comply, to defend, or to prove yourself, you must pause and say, "There is the hook." Once you see it, you can choose not to bite. This is the final law. The unmanipulable man is his own most rigorous critic. He knows his dark corners better than any predator ever could. He has already told himself the worst things that can be said about him, so your insults have no sting. He has already accepted that he can survive with nothing, so your threats have no weight. He has already decided that his own approval is the only kind worth having, so your flattery has no value. He is a fortress that has been sealed from the inside. You can shout at the walls, you can try to bait the gate, but the man inside is not listening. He is busy building while you are busy wasting your breath. The path of the operator. This is the end of the line. You have been given the mechanics of the fortress. You have learned to starve the validation, master the pause, ignore the words, embrace the villain, sever the attachment, and map the hooks. If you have followed this journey to this point, you are no longer the man you were when we started. You have the awareness required to stop being a target and start being an operator. But awareness without action is just a more sophisticated form of failure. You must apply these laws with iron discipline. You must be willing to lose the friends who are only there to use you. You must be willing to let the peace break so that your sovereignty can begin. If this deep dive into the raw machinery of human nature has shifted your perspective, then align yourself with this mission. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. This isn't a favor to me. It is a confirmation to yourself that you are moving out of the light of the sheep and into the shadows of the wolves. By subscribing, you are ensuring that your mind stays sharp in a world designed to keep you dull and compliant. However, you must realize that there are strategies of manipulation, psychological defense, and dark influence that I simply cannot speak about here. The algorithm punishes the sharpest truths. But there is a place where the censorship ends. There is a place where we discuss the things that polite society is too afraid to whisper. It is behind the join button. It is called the architect level. If you are just a tourist, keep scrolling. This isn't for you. But if you are ready to stop playing the victim and start designing the game, if you want the uncensored, raw breakdowns of human nature they don't teach in school, click the Join button. We are building a small circle of operators who understand the value of silence. You can stay in the light with the sheep, or you can step into the shadow with the wolves. The choice is yours. I want to thank you for staying until the very end. Your attention and your discipline have been earned, and they are the first indicators that you have what it takes to master these laws. Most people dropped off in the first 5 minutes because the truth was too cold for them. The fact that you are still here means you are ready. The game is happening all around you, every second of every day. But now, the strings have been cut. The handles have been removed. Go back out into the world and watch the manipulators try to move you. Watch their confusion as their traps fail. Watch their desperation as their words bounce off your armor. You are no longer the prize. You are the player. I will see you in the next video.